What is going on, you guys? This is DerekJ Speaks, and we are here to talk about WWE Monday Night Raw from January 5th, the first official episode of Raw for the year 2026, live from Brooklyn, New York, the 1 year anniversary of Raw on Netflix. It was a year ago when Raw debuted on Netflix on January 6th in 2025. And on that show, leading into it, at least, they were hyping it up as this big, monumental episode of Raw, this brand new era for WWE. And when that show was over, it just felt like another episode of Raw. Had a few big matches on it, but overall was still just your standard episode of Raw. And they did things like that a lot throughout the year. And now, as we head into this new year, I let myself fall for it again because they have been hyping this show up for weeks and weeks and weeks, primarily building it around the World Heavyweight Championship main event between CM Punk and Braun Breaker. And yet again, here I am allowing WWE to hype me up for a big show or some big event for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then I watch it, then the show ends, they fade to black, they roll the credits, it's over, and I'm left completely underwhelmed. And that's not to say nothing happened on this show. This was a very newsworthy show in that two championships changed hands on this show. We have new women's tag team champions, and we have a new women's intercontinental champion. And in terms of the main event for the world championship, it was a match. I could really just end it there, but it was a match that started off, for me, very slow and boring. And once the usual Visions shenanigans took place and the interference started, we got a ref bump, and we got a little bit of interference there. After that was all cleared up, those closing minutes of the match were really fun. There was a lot of great back and forth between Punk and Breaker, and it ended with CM Punk basically cleanly retaining the World Heavyweight Championship. And that was an outcome that I expected. I did not necessarily want it. I was all in favor of seeing Braun Breaker win the championship now. Hell, I've been in favor of Braun Breaker winning that championship for the past couple of months, to be quite honest with you. But I did suspect that this was going to end with a Punk victory. I'm not even upset about it. It's just the way in which it happened and the way the show just came together. And I'm not about to come on here and talk about how disappointed I am that Chris Jericho didn't appear on this show, because I know a lot of people, you'll hear from some people online talking about how disappointing this show was and how underwhelming this show was and how boring this show was and different sound bites like that. And they'll mention how, oh, well, this didn't happen and that didn't happen. For me, it's not even necessarily about that. You know, of course, the rumors and reports going around of Chris Jericho potentially returning on this show, I really didn't completely buy into it. I do suspect that Jericho will be returning to WWE. I just don't think it'll be until the Royal Rumble. I thought there was at least a chance he might show up on this show, but I went into it with the expectation that if he does make a big appearance, it'll be as a surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble, and that'll be a clearer indication of what his direction is now that he'll be back in the company. But Jericho being on this show wouldn't have really helped it for me either, because we still would have gotten the exact same matches, we still would have gotten the exact same outcomes, and the show would have basically flowed the exact same way it did, and I didn't necessarily love it all that much. Again, not to say that there wasn't really good stuff on there. Those final moments of the World Championship match were good. They had some really cool near falls with Breaker kicking out of a GTS. Punk, he attempted a pile driver. It did not look pretty, but he still attempted one nonetheless. We had, like I said, interference with the Vision. They were thwarted by Rey Mysterio and Penta and Dragon Lee. So that's a trios match for an upcoming episode of Raw heading into the Rumble, I'm sure. If not a match for the Saturday night's main event show that'll happen the week before the Rumble. But either way, I suspect that we'll get that match at some point. We had Braun Breaker hitting a diving clothesline from the top turnbuckle down onto CM Punk on the floor through the announce table. That was a really, really cool spot. It's unfortunate, though, that it was basically immediately followed up with Braun Breaker putting Punk back in the ring, standing him up, running the ropes, going for a spear, only for Punk to basically revive himself, kick Breaker in the face, hit him with a GTS, and get the win. Now, this was the second GTS of the match, and there was the interference earlier. I just felt like if Braun was going to lose this match, I wish it wasn't as clean as this. And, some might argue that this wasn't necessarily the cleanest victory. By all accounts, it was. Punk hit his finish, got the 1-2-3. To me, when it's cut and dry like that, that's a clean victory. It doesn't matter what kind of interference and how they want to spin it. That was basically a clean finish, and I don't think Braun Breaker is in a position where if he's challenging for a championship and not winning it, he should just lose clean like that. Now, he'll be fine. We've been in this position with Braun Breaker before. I remember back in 2024 when Braun lost a clean PLE match to Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental Championship, and people were losing their minds talking about how Braun Breaker looked weak. And then it was just a matter of weeks before he regained his dominant look and he won the championship clean. No issues with that. So Braun will be fine. He's the future. He's the one who has a lot of muscle behind him with Triple H and the creative team. Clearly, they see a lot of big things in him. This is not one and done. I do think he'll get his crowning moment at some point. It could even be at the Royal Rumble. There have been other reports going around that Braun Breaker is an early favorite, at least behind the scenes. There have been discussions of making him a favorite to win the Royal Rumble, and that if he were to lose this match on this show, they might run it back for WrestleMania. I will say, having watched this match, I have no interest in seeing CM Punk and Braun Breaker in a rematch at WrestleMania. There was nothing that they did in that match that made me hungry to see the two of them matched up again. So if Braun Breaker is going to win the Rumble and challenge for a championship at WrestleMania, I hope it's against someone else. Or if Punk is still champion, I hope they can find a way to involve someone else to make it a triple threat or something like that, because the two of them, like I said, those final moments of the match were good, but up to that point, it was pretty dull and boring, and I'd rather not see a second year in a row, regardless of the night, a second year in a row of having a very dull, boring main event of WrestleMania for a championship. But again, just the way that Punk won, it just felt very flat, and then they just went off the air. Nothing really special about it, and for a match that they've been really hyping up for the past month or so, you look at it and think, man, that's it? And maybe I'm the only one, and that's fine. If some people looked at it like, hey, they love the match, they love Punk winning, they're big CM Punk fans, hey, the people in Brooklyn cheered for it, they went crazy for it, they were firmly behind CM Punk getting the win there, so, it's great. Braun Breaker, is he ready for this spot? Did this match prove he wasn't? He did have a botch in there when he botched a Frankensteiner. That's just a simple slip up. I don't look at that like, oh, well, Braun Breaker's not ready. Braun Breaker is ready. It's just a matter of whether WWE is ready to crown him yet, and clearly they are not. And I just wish they could have done a better job of protecting him in losing here. I don't have an issue with Braun losing. I just wish they did a better job of protecting him in defeat. But we move on. CM Punk's still champion. Braun's a loser. We'll see what they do with him and his quest to eventually win that World Heavyweight Championship. We did have two other championship matches on this show. One match opened the show. That was for the women's tag team titles, with the Kabuki Warriors defending against Rhea Ripley and Io Sky in a very fun match. Very fun back and forth. These four women have had really good chemistry. They've worked together a lot in recent months. And a lot of the times that they've worked together and it's just the four of them in tag team action, or if there's a mixture of these women in singles matches, it's usually pretty fun. And this was no exception. And the finish did catch me off guard because I was not fully expecting a win here. I should have. I mean, the Kabuki Warriors have lost so much to not only Rhea and Io, but to other people like Lash Legend and Nia Jax on SmackDown. They've lost so much that I thought, well, it won't matter with WWE booking it because they'll just have them win in the end. But that's not what happened here. We had Rhea laying out Asuka with the Riptide. Io went up top, hit the over the moonsault, and then she dove outside onto Kairi, and Rhea pinned Asuka to get the win. So the babyfaces win here. We have new tag team champions, and good for them. I can't imagine it'll be a necessarily long reign. I just can't picture heading into WrestleMania season and Rhea Ripley is doing tag team duty. You know, unless they have directions, that there is a direction to go in with the Women's World Championship that does not necessarily need to involve Rhea Ripley, you know, on either show. There's a, if Bianca is cleared and ready to come back, there's an easy story to tell with her and Jade. And if Bianca is not ready, you can easily do Jade and Charlotte for WrestleMania. And on Raw, if they didn't want to insert Rhea into the title picture and do her versus Stephanie Vicaire, I mean, Stephanie still has stuff going on with Raquel, but maybe we involve Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez in that situation, in that scenario. Maybe that could be something. So I'm not saying it's impossible for Rhea to remain tag team champion heading into WrestleMania. I just don't think it's very likely, but we'll see. The crowd went crazy for the two of them. The fans love seeing Rhea and Rio together. So we'll see how long this run lasts. We also had the Women's Intercontinental Championship on the line with Maxine Dupree defending against Becky Lynch. The crowd wasn't really too into this. They were even chanting Y2J at one point during the commercial break. If you were watching using a VPN, or if you're overseas and you just don't have to deal with commercials when the commercial breaks, they were wrestling, not doing a whole lot. The crowd was pretty quiet, and they were chanting Y2J. So that showed you how interested they were. There was some polite applause for Maxine, and they were popping whenever Maxine teased or flat out applied the ankle lock on Becky Lynch. And that was good because it played into the finish where Maxine fully applied the ankle lock on Becky, but Becky maneuvered herself in a way where she was able to sit up and lean back and basically cover Maxine and obstruct the referee's view so she could hold on to the ropes. And in doing so, she got the 1, 2, 3. And Becky Lynch is once again the Intercontinental Champion. Maxine, she's very good, you know, and for her experience level, she's pretty good. And she has improved tremendously over the years. And in recent months, she's definitely stepped up a lot. But I always figured that belt was coming back around the waist of Becky Lynch, and it did here. What's Maxine's future? I'm not sure. But for Becky, I definitely foresee a scenario where she will be the champion heading into WrestleMania, and that's where we will finally get a singles match between her and AJ Lee. Does that match need the Intercontinental Championship on the line? Absolutely not. But it's just a further example of them putting a little more shine on that Intercontinental Championship, I would say at the expense of the Women's U.S. Championship, which they have no respect for whatsoever. But they've held off on doing a singles match between AJ Lee and Becky Lynch for this long. And I'm assuming the reason for that is because they have wanted to hold off on doing that singles match for a show like WrestleMania. So Becky has the belt back. I assume that's where we will get that at, but we'll see. And honestly, coming out of this show, those were, like, in terms of matches, those were the biggest, most important things on the show. Another big thing about this show was this Stranger Things crossover, of course, with the big Netflix show. Of course, a lot of people know about it, although some people don't, because I did see a lot of comments from people posting online talking about this show that, you know, hey, I've never seen an episode of Stranger Things, so all this crossover stuff means nothing to me. And every time they played that theme song in the live crowd, there was no reaction to any of it whatsoever. But all it was a different stage setup. They had the van from the show. If you're familiar with the show, they had a lot of artifacts from the show. They had the van. They had a lot of, you know, different elements and different graphics and stuff like that. But it wasn't anything too crazy. I mean, you didn't see Eleven or Will or Dustin or any characters from the show or any of the actors or anything like that pop up. There was no interaction, no goofy comedy stuff. It was very tame. It was basically just, you know, that Netflix synergy between the two products, you know. But that's really all there was to it. Not much to really say about it other than that. We had an appearance from Gunther on the show. He was interrupted by AJ Styles, so we had a confrontation between the two of them, leading to AJ slapping Gunther right in the face. It was a really cool visual. And later in the night, Adam Pearce made it official that the two of them will go one-on-one on next week's show live in Dusseldorf, Germany. They are in Germany this upcoming Friday for SmackDown. That's the big 3 Stages of Hell match for the WWE Championship between Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes. And so they are staying in Germany for next week's show. And that means a special start time of 2 p.m. Eastern and 11 a.m. Pacific time. So there you go. Early start time for Raw next week. So that'll be pretty cool. Elsewhere on the show, we had the Usos. They appeared. They just won the tag team titles last week. So they were on the show and proclaimed that 2026 will be the year for the Usos. As long as we get the Usos versus the Lucha Brothers at WrestleMania, I'm really hoping for that. Penta and Rey Fenix reuniting. Rey Fenix could sure use a spot like that. So hopefully they have that kind of match in mind for those two teams. Stephanie Vaquer was on the show. She had an in-ring interview with Jackie Redmond. She came out walking in a walking boot. They claim that she suffered an injury to her ankle during the triple threat match on the show the previous week with Raquel and Nikki Bella. And Stephanie was just out here talking about how she's a fighting champion and thanking the fans for believing in her. And when the interview was over, she got blindsided from behind by Raquel, who attacked her and targeted her ankle, laid her out with the Tejana bomb. She was about to Pillmanize her ankle with a chair, but then officials and Adam Pearce came in and stopped her. And then it went to commercial, and after the break, cut backstage. Stephanie's being helped out by some officials, and Raquel came up again and attacked her. So Raquel was not the one to eat the pinfall in that triple threat the previous week, so this feud is going to continue. I don't think it will lead to a Raquel victory here, but with a lot of the improvements to her in-ring and her overall presentation that she has taken on over the past year, I could definitely see a world championship in her future, especially if they start really ramping up tensions with her and Liv Morgan, and this whole Judgment Day drama continues to play out way too long, which, you know, it's going to. I could see the World Championship being a fixture in there, whether it goes from Liv to Raquel, Raquel to Liv, however that plays out. I could definitely foresee a scenario where something like that happens this year. Speaking of Liv, she had her first match since returning from injury. She returned at Survivor Series last year, and this was her first match on TV, and it was against Lyra Valkyria. It was a fine match, but it was just a standard TV match. Bayley and Roxanne were out there. They interfered. Bayley ended up chasing Roxanne to the back with a steel chair. This briefly distracted Lyra enough to where she got hit with the Oblivion and pinned. So Liv Morgan gets the win. The fans cheered for it, so, it won't be very long before Liv Morgan turns back into a babyface, because these fans clearly still love her. And they missed her when she was gone, which, it's understandable. And in terms of other things on the actual show to discuss, not much else other than during one of those commercial breaks that I was talking about, we had a segment on the stage with Adam Pearce where he presented a Raw contract to Javon Evans from NXT, the bouncy boy that they like to call him. And Javon, if you aren't familiar with his work, he's extremely talented. He's super young. He's like 21, 22, something like that. He's been a standout in NXT over the past year. So, and of course he appeared on that Saturday night's main event show for Cena's retirement. I'm sure he impressed a lot of people. I have no issues with the call-up. I'm a big fan of his. I would have liked for him to have stayed in NXT a little bit longer. That could have given him an opportunity to kind of lead the show and maybe give him the NXT championship for a run and let him dominate the brand down there, But the main roster needs new faces. We're seeing them. We had a vignette for Obafemi on this show. They've been running vignettes for him on both Raw and SmackDown over the past several weeks. Trick Williams just debuted on SmackDown the previous week. Joe Hendry appeared on SmackDown. We have some new women, like Lash Legend recently debuted on SmackDown. Jordan Grace, she popped her head up on the show. There's plenty of other talents down in NXT who could definitely use a call-up soon. So it's good to get some newer and, more importantly, younger faces, especially in the male side. With the women, we just need more women on the show because the depth is getting very weak right now, especially in the scenes for the main singles championships. So getting more depth on both shows, specifically SmackDown right now, is very important. For the men, it's good to get some more guys on the show, but it's really important to get some more youth and get some younger guys. That's why having a Javon Evans on the show and really pushing someone like Braun Breaker and bringing in Obafemi and Trick Williams and all these people is so important, because you can't keep relying on the CM Punks and the Randy Ortons and the Roman Reigns and even the Chris Jerichos, for too much longer. Eventually those guys are going to be phased out and they're going to have their own retirements, so having these younger guys, and plus it's just nice to have some fresher faces in the main events. I don't necessarily want to see Cody Rhodes main event every single year against the same people. I don't want to see Punk and Roman and all these people main eventing WrestleMania every single year against the same people and being in the main events of these PLEs against the same people every single year. So having some fresh faces like that will be good. And yeah, so that's where we end things off at. Like I said, the show top to bottom, not a bad show. It was a very average show, but for how much they built it up, it felt far more disappointing. And again, I blame no one. I don't even blame WWE, because this is what they do. Triple H likes to talk about how this is what we do. This is what they do. They put on some of the safest, most average television shows every single week. They hype it up. They inflate it. They gas it up. And people like me, fans like me, continue to watch it and fall for it. Like, no, this week was down, but next week or the next coming weeks or the next PLE, that'll be the real, that's the big show. That's the one they're building up to. And every single time, damn near every single time I'm met with this. I contemplated not even doing this review because it's like there's nothing to really talk about from this show that I really feel motivated to talk about. But talking about how, I keep falling for this, I don't know what to tell you. I've heard many fans over the years talk about habit and hope in terms of being wrestling fans, specifically WWE fans, where you watch out of habit because it's something you're so used to doing, and you watch hoping that each week will get better. 2025, as I've mentioned many times, was a very bad year for creative in WWE. Not the worst, not bring back Vince McMahon levels of worst, because believe me, it could always be worse. But still, even by those standards, last year was not a great year. And this is not a great sign for the new year. All I can do is hope. All I can do is hope that next week's show is great, and the week after that, and the week after that, even if I don't watch them, which I don't watch these shows every single week. Sometimes I skip an episode here and there. Sometimes just watching clips on YouTube is more than enough. And sometimes I feel motivated to actually watch the show, like this one, and I met with utter disappointment. So there you go. You gamble with it. Like this week's episode of SmackDown in Germany. 3 Stages of Hell, Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre. Honestly, I'm hoping for a Drew McIntyre win, even though every smart brain in my body is telling me there's no way Drew McIntyre is winning that championship this week. So, but hey, habit and hope, So that's really where we stand with things here. And, I wish this wasn't such a dull start to the year, but hey, that's where we are with things. But thank you for listening anyway. And if you like what you heard, like what you see, hit that like button and follow me on Twitter/X at DerekJ Speaks. This should be a good year. I'm hoping for a good year between WWE and AEW and any other wrestling content that I cover this year. I'm hoping that it's good. I pray that it is good, and that a show like this will be forgotten about and left in the bottom of the barrel dustbins of the wrestling community throughout the year. And we get even bigger and better shows going forward. So, till next time, take care.